Welcome to another episode of Health Your Way podcast, where we discuss health issues ranging from physical, mental, emotional, as well as current facts. Today's episode, we're talking about hormones misfiring. Is it even possible to reset your hormones at any age? So I have my guest. I'm really happy to have Camille Lawson, who has been in the healthcare profession for over 30 years. She's a registered nurse, hormone educator, nutrition expert, I'm saying too much, bravo, and counselor specializing in sexuality and relationships. So she specializes in sexuality and relationships. I feel like I said a lot, Camille. Please, anything else you want to add to your impressive resume, basically?
No, that is absolutely perfect. And people always like to know about the sexuality piece because it makes kind of for some good cocktail party conversation, right?
That too, but it also kind of combines, if you understand sexuality, then hormones and then emotions and stuff like that. So it's a nice piece, and I really like that. And I want to say thank you for being part of this platform. I think this is a conversation a lot of people don't have. I think it should be asked. I think before we dive into resetting your hormones per se, what are hormones and what are they responsible for? Educate us, please.
Yes, well, thank you so much for having me, Mo. I'm really grateful for being here. And yes, hormones, a lot of people don't realize we actually have over 50 known hormones in our body, and they
Okay.
are virtually responsible for every chemical, almost every chemical messaging. So if you picture that the hormone activates the message that goes through the blood and basically tells every part of our body what to do. So it's not just reproduction, we think about that, but it's everything. So it's a huge, huge component of how we look and feel.
I don't think I knew that. The way you said it, I don't think a lot of people know that because I think people think hormones like, oh, again, the sexuality part, or even then as we get older, the stress hormones in respects to our changes in our body. But the fact that you mentioned there's 50, but the fact that it's a huge component in our life and nobody understands and nobody grasps that. I
It's true.
appreciate that.
It's
And
true. And the influence that they have on everything, and it's not just sexuality or weight, it's a lot, it's everything. It's
yeah,
huge.
I think as we age, I'm not going to tell my age, I'm not going to tell your age, we don't know our age, but let's just say as we age, I think is it fair to say hormones change? And in our 20s, 30s, and 40s, and 50s, what are some of the expectations that you can tell us at different decades of our life?
I love that you asked that question, Mo, because so many people focus on, we hear about perimenopause and menopause, which happens for women in their 40s and 50s. But because of what I just said, that hormones influence everything, it makes sense that they actually influence us throughout our entire life. So in our 20s, it's more like our oxytocin, which is our love hormone, our feel good,
Oh,
our mood. A lot of people in their 20s are coupling up, they're finding long-term relationships. So that hormone is a big deal because the more you touch and bond, the more you have of that happy hormone. So it's a very good thing. On the other hand, cortisol, which I'll be talking about, throughout our
yes.
entire interview,
Mm-hmm.
starts to rear its head more because in the 20s, let's face it, there's a lot of pressure, right? Especially 20s into 30s, pressure for jobs, pressure as you start people trying to decide, do I want children? Do I not want children? A lot of career stuff, a lot of financial pressures as we move into our 30s,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you live in certain cities, am I going to try to buy something? And so there's a
Yes.
lot of pressure, and cortisol, which is our stress hormone, really plays havoc with virtually every other hormone. And here's a little quick fun fact that people will love to know. It's called a foundation hormone, is
Really?
cortisol, meaning it literally affects the function of every other hormone. So it's a big deal. So 30s, often people are starting to reproduce, men and women. And so we get a lot of that good that comes with that, but the hormones are going like, woo, up and down and all over the place, especially with pregnancy, postpartum, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Into our 40s, 50s, then we really are dealing with perimenopause and menopause if you're a woman. And if you're a man, guess what? They have hormones too. Their testosterone, another little fun fact, actually starts to go down, men, at
Mm.
around age 35. But
Really? No, 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 let's go
yeah,
back. No, no, we need to point this
I
out. Don't
know.
just, don't
Poor
leave us.
men. They're like, no, no. But the good news is the testosterone for men is just very slowly kind of comes down as they get older. Whereas for women in our 40s and 50s, our hormones can really bottom out rather quickly. And
Really?
they can go up and down for a few years, and for other women the ovaries just stop making their hormones, and we get a lot of effects in perimenopause and menopause, or we can. So it is a big deal. And then as we move more into our 60s, 70s, and onward, we're back to, I like to think about it back to the oxytocin, because bonding is so important, socialization is so important, and just to feel happy as we're getting older, I think is really, really important. So I think the main point is just recognizing that the hormones really do influence so much. Oh, and I wanted to add blood sugar, which is insulin, is a hormone. And insulin actually can really be a problem in people as they age. So there you go.
I think for me, the fact that what got to me was the 35 years. For men, they go slowly. Okay, help me out. I've heard, and I think maybe I've read that women tend to have their sexual drive go up in their mid 30s too. So men are going down, women are going up. There's a disconnect
It
here.
can be.
There's a disconnect here.
Well, you have this to look forward to too. A lot of women will report that their sex drive, in fact, in their 40s and 50s, contrary to some women have no sex drive because of the hormone issue, but a lot of women feel liberated in their 50s and 60s because kids have left the home. There's not as much financial pressure. Maybe they've started a new relationship. Maybe they're rekindling the passion in a relationship that's they've had for a while. So I do hear that. So there's a lot of hope in that
Yes, you
area.
hear that, women? There's still hope for us as we get older. No, that's really good. I think for a lot of people that are listening to, there's often some misconceptions out there on hormones. And what are some misconceptions you've heard of that could be harmful for people? The fact that they think that's actual facts.
Yeah, that's a great question as well, Mo. And I think the big one that comes to my mind is that we cannot influence our hormones,
Okay.
and that aging and all of the associated things that we hear about, that can happen as we get older, such as, can't sleep anymore, energy, sex drive down through the tubes, that weight gain that a lot of men and women get with middle age. What bothers me is that people feel powerless, and they feel that it's just inevitable. And of course, aging, we know we are born and we are going to pass away at some point, but aging uncomfortably and poorly does not have to be inevitable. We can influence our hormones by things that are in our control. I'm a big proponent of great nutrition. I know you are too. The right supplements if you need them. There are also bioidentical hormones, which we won't get into too much of that today, but there are things, that's what I want people to know. Hormones can be influenced. And if we go back to what I said before, cortisol is the number one hormone that influences all other hormones. So if people really embrace it, if they could get their cortisol balanced, they could influence every other hormone in their body. And that's doable. Like, cortisol can be balanced. So I want to empower people to recognize that.
Okay, so that's a great segue to my next question, because we talk about resetting hormones. So can even cortisol reset hormones? Like, how would you go by doing that? And yeah, that's really my question. How would you go by doing that?
Yeah, and that's, again, great question, because they feel powerless, they don't believe you can reset. And I coined that. I created a nutrition program I called 30-Day Hormone Reset. And the reason is because it's like it's not going to roll back the clock of our aging, but you can reset so that things are more in balance, in sync. So the way I also look at it is, if things are out of, too high or too low, it doesn't matter what it is, that's not where we want to be in our health, right? We want to be not right in the middle, but somewhere close where we feel really good. So cortisol absolutely can be reset, because cortisol, and is our stress hormone, and so we like cortisol. We are supposed to have our cortisol come up in the in the morning and level off as the day goes on. But because we know we have so many stressors in our life, for many people, their cortisol's up here all the time, 24/7, and that causes so many problems. Or it bottoms out, which is even worse, frankly, because you're exhausted, have no energy, and adrenal fatigue. So yes, we can influence our cortisol and get it back in balance. And one of my favorite ways is using adaptogens. A
Okay.
lot of people have heard of adaptogens. They have actually been around for athletes for a very long time. But commonplace now are things like ashwagandha,
Yes. I believe in
rhodiola.
that.
Good,
Yes.
good. I'm glad to
Yes.
hear it. Shilajit. These herbal substances have been absolutely shown to help the body adapt to stress.
Hmm.
So they don't take away the stressors, we have to do that for ourselves, but our ability to deal with it and to have our cortisol be more balanced. Adaptogens are a game changer. I use a great nutrition that has fabulous adaptogens in it, but lifestyle also shouldn't be underestimated. And back to what I said, if people really embrace that they can reset their cortisol and they realized how important it was, I think they'd be more inclined to do the things that we know, like 10 minutes, 5 minutes of quiet reflection, call it meditation, call it what you will, but the studies are quite clear. Deep breathing and quieting the mind helps us balance our cortisol. There's so many great apps out there now too, right? Things like Insight Timer, Calm. There's a lot of apps that people can use to help with that. And, walking, very therapeutic. It's a cortisol balancer. Yoga, things like that. Talking. Sexuality, sex helps balance out
Yes, it
our
does.
cortisol, right? It relaxes us and it exudes that great hormone oxytocin. So in fact, if we can reset and get that cortisol balanced, people are amazed at how it influences so many other things, including, by the way, their weight. Cortisol is
Yes.
responsible for that visceral
I was gonna
middle
let you.
body fat.
Yes.
So that's a big deal for a lot of North Americans, as we know, right?
Yes, I was really going to mention that because I have clients and I can tell that even though you exercise, please listen to what we're saying. No matter what, if you don't control your actual stress level, like you can, if you even think you eat properly, but your lifestyle affects your external and your internal lifestyle will affect how you lose weight or the extra gain. And it's really bad. I see it. It's like, and
And
people
it's
don't,
frustrating for people, isn't it? Because they
yes,
feel like they're trying, they're working out. I know you're a great trainer, Mo, and they're doing all the so-called right things, and the weight often doesn't budge. But when I inquire about people's stress levels, and I'm sure you do too, often that's what
I
I'm
have
hearing.
to.
The cortisol's up here, and so they're never going to lose weight. So managing the cortisol first and resetting it truly is the key, I think, to overall health in general.
No, I agree with you. And I think one of the things I ask my clients, I ask, okay, do you have support system? Because sometimes if you have somebody against you, and like I've had a client tell me how her husband will put chocolates on her table, stuff like that, to keep like that stress aspects in your life or emotional stress or whatever you want to call it will affect your hormones or will affect your goals and what you want in general. So it's
Yes.
really great that you mentioned that. And I think for the for the audience that are saying, okay, we understand that you can reset your hormones in a sense. Is it backed by evidence-based science or medicine? Like, what are your like? Just educate. Make sure that we want to know: is it really backed by evidence-based science?
Yeah, and I appreciate that people do want to know that. And I mean, I am trained as a registered nurse as well, so I do have that medical model thinking, although I would refer to myself now as certainly an integrative practitioner. I embrace all the different modalities because it comes down to results and how people feel. So is it measurable and quantifiable? Absolutely. There's a really fabulous test that's probably the gold standard right now. It's called the Dutch test. It stands for
Okay.
Dried Urine Testing Comprehensive Hormones. There's a mouthful, but in a nutshell, it really tests the level of hormones in the body, and you can measure it before and after somebody has introduced, for example, the adaptogens, lifestyle changes. Cortisol, you can actually see how it's broken down in the body. So these are very quantifiable test. Does everybody need that test? No, absolutely not. Because for most of us, we can go by how we feel. And I'm very, very results oriented. You should feel a difference when you embark on new things, even if it's training, different nutrition. The results should be in how you feel. But if you do want the quantifiable evidence-based, it is there. And there are lots of research studies as well.
I like that. And I guess if for people that are interested in reaching out to you for your service, or what's the best platform to reach out to you?
Yeah, thank you for that. And probably a couple of places. I am on Instagram,
Okay.
Embracing Hormones. So at Embracing Hormones. I also have a landing page for my reset program if people just want
Oh,
to learn more about it and or book a consult with me. And that is at 30dayhormonereset.com. And I do have a Facebook group called Crack the Menopause Code. So if you happen to be a woman and you're over that kind of 40 years and you're listening, it's a great group. There's hundreds and hundreds of women, and we really make it fun and we help each other. And I'm committed to being in the group regularly and bringing some really great suggestions and ideas. But
I love
I can't wait to help more people, because the more people that understand their hormones, they are, my tagline that I mean is be your own best health advocate, because health starts with us, right? Nobody is going to be in charge of our health the way we are. So it's all about knowledge is power. Arm yourself with knowledge, and then you'll decide for yourself what's the best route for you to go.
I like that. I think that's for me. I find that I can't force you to take it on. All I can do is provide you with information. At
That's right.
that point, it's your responsibility to understand that if this is going to work for you or it's not going to work for you. Or even if you don't know, like seek out
Yeah.
assistance from somebody like you. I think when people are reaching out to you, to the audience itself, what sets you apart from people that do offer you a kind of service?
I love that you asked that, and it's the truth. I care, and that is the
Okay.
truth. I offer, I stick with people, meaning if people want to start the hormone reset program or they want to have a consultation, a lot of platforms, as you know, you get your workbooks, you get your videos, and you're kind of left. And what happens? We come out of the gate strong. We're good for a couple of weeks. But I know that that personal touch matters. People want to know there's a human being to ask a question of. And you know what, I'm all about easy. I like everything simple. I do not do complicated. It doesn't work. Nobody wants it. But I believe that people need to have me involved with them, and I check in with people. So I think it is that I care. Plus, I can talk about sexuality, and intimacy does matter and is a big part of our hormones and our overall health. So I think people also like to know that they can throw something out and I'm not going to blush. And
I like that. I like that. I want to say, like, honestly, I've learned a lot in respects to, like, I understood what hormones were, but listening to you, I think a lot of people need to understand. And I'm telling you, I'm listening audience, like, a fitness trainer can only do so much. It really can only do so much. Like, I can teach you the basic, but if you don't understand that there's certain parts of your body, like your hormones are being misfired, or your external factors or internal factors need to be addressed, I am not that person. You may need to see somebody like Camille, that she can address, that actual aspect. And then you can see a fitness trainer because you've already resolved the external internal factors to see the results. Is that fair to say? Like that, to me, that makes sense.
Absolutely. And here's another fun fact that plays right into your business and mine is testosterone. So we always think about testosterone and we think immediately of sex drive. But guess what? Testosterone in men and women is also responsible for our muscles and our
Yes.
skeletal system. So getting a handle on, testosterone is also going to enhance what you're doing with Mo or your trainer, and whatever working out program that you're going to do. It's also very good for our skin and our stamina. So, everything is integrated. I think that's very, very true.
And I like that because I think a lot of people don't know that. I think a lot of people think it's separate, and I think they don't realize, cortisol, the hormones affect your body and affect your mind, everything else, that you have to address that before you can actually see results in other aspects of your life. So,
Absolutely.
and I want to say
Absolutely.
thank you very much for being part of this platform. Like, I wanted to do this conversation because I don't think it's had for me, I find it's kind of taboo because people don't really talk about hormones. They don't really understand it. They think of it more in the sexual aspects, but they
Yeah.
don't realize, like, when you said 50, I don't think people knew that, or even knew that, cortisol was the actual baseline for everything else. And that's something that's really nice to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Knowledge is power.
Yes. Great.
So thank you
Yeah,
for this platform, because you're bringing regularly, you're bringing some really great information to people.
I appreciate that. Thank you for joining us today on our weekly episode of Health Your Way podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, share with others, and please feel free to comment below and ask any questions on topics we discussed, as well as future topics you'd like to hear about. Have a happy and healthy week, and be sure to tune in next week for the next episode on a Health Your Own Way podcast.